So we want to begin by acknowledging that though we are meeting virtually, we are all on land that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples for thousands of years. In particular, we acknowledge that the Special Olympics Ontario office is located on the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations. This land is governed by the Dish with One Spoon Covenant between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Confederacy of Ojibwe and Allied Nations. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work, live, and play on this land. Now, before we begin, first things first, a few tips of etiquette. One, we'll be recording this session to be played at a later date for those that might have missed it or want to catch up later on. Please keep your microphone on mute at all times unless you're speaking. We do have a designated time for questions after all presenters have finished. If you're going to ask a question, please use the raise hand feature. We do have chat enabled, which will allow you to send a message directly to the Special Olympics staff or to post questions if for some reason your mic's not working or feel more comfortable posting in the chat. But we don't have the feature enabled to direct message between people in the room. If you're looking for more information on this topic or want to get in touch with any of our presenters directly, send me an email, jasonh@specialolympicsontario.com. I'll be happy to connect you, do a quick introduction, and get you set with the right person or people that you want to talk with. So with that said, I'd like to introduce Lizzie Lennox, who will talk about the Indulge Ottawa event. Lizzie?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I am the fundraising lead for Special Olympics Ontario Greater Ottawa. And when I'm not busy doing fundraising, I'm also a coach for the Alpine Snow Stars for the children. All right, so to start off, I'm just going to give a quick overview of Indulge. So the event has been running for a few years now, and it's really about raising awareness and funds for Special Olympics Ottawa to help support athletes as they progress from their local to provincial to national and even world games. Because while some of those might have funding available to them, there's also additional training and things required on the athlete end, which makes it really important to make sure they're fully supported as well as their coaching staff as they progress to those games. So as part of the event, we have brought together about 300 individuals from the Ottawa area. Typically, they're young professionals, live within kind of the downtown core, and they come together to experience this all-inclusive food and drink sampling from local vendors. So you'll see on the next page, but the way we kind of set everything up is we have everyone come in, there's a check-in, they get their auction numbers, and then they come into the room, and we have all the vendors lined up in the venue with all the tables in the middle, the speaker in the front, and then kind of the band on the side, depending how big they are and how much space they need. So just to give you that visual as we go through it. So I also do have a few photos here. This is kind of the vibe of how it feels the night of. As you can see, and as I've just mentioned, we do live music. So we've had dueling pianos before. We've also had local bands come, and that's always a really big hit because it gives a little bit of entertainment during the time when you're mingling with your friends, you're mingling and networking with new people, and eating and drinking away. So a big part of the event is, of course, the silent and live auction, and that's really the moneymaker of this event and what makes it so fun. So in 2019, we had actually increased our ticket price. I believe at one point we had it at $60, and then we moved to $75. And this is, of course, to help offset costs, make sure that we're building that demand and making sure it's an event that people really want to attend. And there were no issues when we made that ticket increase. So that was really, really great too, because you can always be a bit nervous when you're trying to increase a ticket price, but that went really well, and we actually exceeded our numbers that year. So to give a context of how much money we raise from an event like this, so the event typically runs from 6:30 to about 10:30, 11, just based on obviously local hours. and we raised $43,000 in 2019. So that was a significant increase from the year before. I think the year before was probably closer to 2025. So we're really excited about that. And in 2020, we had really big plans to exceed that number and get to 50,000. So hopefully by the next time we run this event, we will reach that goal and beyond. All right, so to give an overview of planning, because an event like this is really big, and I think the reason we're so successful is because we have kind of everything planned out from the very start. We're always talking about Indulge. We have a group of people who are committed to it, and they're not necessarily on our council, so they're actually community members. So Jason happens to be part of our council, so thank you, Jason. We really appreciate your support in running this event. So we typically kick off our planning about 9 to 12 months out. And, you know, it's nice to have some time in between your events, obviously, because you need to digest everything that happened and then kick back up and start again. So we like to set our roles and expectations very early on because it's important that everyone's accountable. If you're going to have people who are going to be showing up and giving your effort, you want to make sure that they're there for the right reasons and that they're going to be really helpful on the team. So that's something that we do really well. We also host monthly or bi-monthly meetings, and I think this past year has shown virtual meetings are definitely an option for the future. They're quicker. You know, no one's stuck in traffic. You don't have to feel like you have to leave work early if you can't. So we really have enjoyed that this year, but also we value being able to go and visit our local vendors. So go to the local restaurants, go to the local bars who are going to be showing up and giving away free food to 300 people so you can support them in that time. The other big thing, of course, is setting a fundraising goal and preparing your budget. And your budget will include things like the vendor or the venue costs, as well as AV, any tech costs that you might have, or kind of like upsells available at the venue. We've got decor, entertainment, the auction platform if you decide to use one, and then a speaker, again, if that's something you want to do. So securing the venue is obviously the first thing you need to do. You need to make sure that it's accessible, that there's proximity to public transport, or setting up some sort of partnership with Uber or one of the rideshare companies is also an option. You'll need to make sure they have the right tech you need. So if you want to show a video to show what Special Olympics is all about, or highlight a speaker from an athlete or someone like that, then it's important to make sure they have the right capabilities to do that. You'll need to look at capacity, obviously the cost of it. A lot of venues are really helpful toward charities, so make sure you do some shopping, because you'll want to find a vendor who you can be with for years to come, because then people associate your event and they just kind of build up that momentum every year, and the relationships are really important. So the other final thing I would mention about securing the venue is you need to make sure that you're allowed to have outside vendors. So this is an issue, especially pertaining to alcohol, from my understanding. So definitely when you're looking at venues, that is a must have, or else the event cannot happen there. So again, we do ours in a banquet hall. We're actually in the process of looking for a new vendor because they have changed their capacity and we have exceeded that. So we are going to be going through this process very soon, but we'll be able to share all of our results with you guys. So the next big thing that needs to happen during planning is build your marketing plan. So we have MailChimp, which I believe there are free versions available, and it's a really great way to connect with your audience, engage with them, drive ticket sales, get people on your email list, because you'll want to keep them as per local laws, just to continue that, again, ongoing engagement for years to come. So we're, of course, on Instagram and Facebook. We have looked into other platforms. So typically people on the committee will post on like Twitter and whichever venues are best for them. But those are the top social platforms that we use, where we like to do giveaways. So, you know, sign up today and you'll get a chance for free hockey tickets or something like that. And typically we pull from auction items to do that. Looking at local influencers or PR. So if there's opportunities in the media, then definitely reach out to them. It's super important to, again, have people who are very well connected who can do that. So we can go to the next slide. All right, so you can't do this without a team. I won't go through and read exactly because there's other people who get to present tonight too. But again, happy to share way more information with you guys as you want after. But we do have our lead. So that would typically be someone from your council, from your fundraising committee, who's really going to organize everyone, manage it, pick up if someone happens to not be able to assist. You're going to be the one taking over and really being a part of everything. So super important to establish that early on. You're going to be having someone who's going to be responsible for sponsorships. So this is someone who's very well connected in the business community, who's not afraid to ask for money, and who will work really closely with the marketing team to actually develop a sponsorship package. So vendor relations, this could be booking the venue, transportation, and then securing the food and beverage vendors. So what's really worked for us is we have a few people on our team who have a lot of food and restaurant industry experience as well as drinks. So having the people who have those relationships really helps secure those vendors, because again, this is a charitable event and they're giving away everything for free. So it's really amazing to see the community come together for that, but you do need the right people to manage those relationships. You'll also want a small decor budget. So this is, again, where a lot of your money goes. We typically get good partner discounts from local organizations for this. So it's not something that needs to be all out. Really, the event isn't about being all like snazzy and about the decor. It's really about coming together, talking, meeting new people, auctioning, and everything in between. So the decor isn't the most important part. It just needs to be simple but nice. Volunteer lead is also important. They need to recruit volunteers to assist with the day of, and these volunteers are super important so you can enjoy your night as well. We've already talked about marketing, and then you'll also need someone responsible for the auction. So getting the list of auction items, getting the auctioneer, and making all those requests, as well as securing anything you need to process payment the day of. And then finally, we also have a team who is responsible for entertainment. So, getting the band, doing a balloon pop if you want to have an extra little moneymaker during the night of, having contests, and a photo booth. All right, so we will just go through these really quickly. These are just samples of our sponsorship package and our auction donation form that we've used in the past. More than happy to share the full sponsorship package and all of our resources, again, as mentioned. So just wanted to give you a little glimpse at some of the stuff that we send out. You can go next. All right, so I do have some big tips for the big night. So what we've learned from the past couple of years is you need to have a quick system for check-in and auction checkout. You need to have a flexible dress code, because people often have, if you don't say anything, people have no idea what to expect. So give them something that could really encompass anything. So we typically say, business casual, and then people can take or leave whatever they want from that. Don't feel the pressure to get a speaker. If the speaker isn't going to add value, they're really expensive, and you don't feel the need to do that. Keep your volunteers safe and happy. Your volunteers are very important. There could be some that are working coat check that could be underage. So again, making sure they're safe, making sure that you're going to sign their volunteer forms and everything in between. Make sure your vendors have enough food. So it's really unfortunate when a vendor runs out of food in the first 30 minutes to an hour, because people have paid, they're expecting dinner, and that's never good. Have different options available: vegan, vegetarian, and alcohol free, and most importantly, have fun. I think I'm almost out of time, but I'm almost done. So a few auction tips too, because again, as mentioned, the only way you're going to make a lot of money is if you have an awesome auction. So you need really good auction items, which is great because you'll be able to get those from your community, but you'll also need to look at some big ticket items. So I won a trip to Mexico, for example, and we have a car where you can drive a beautiful car for an hour, or you can go skydiving, or trips with Via Rail and WestJet. So there's so many opportunities. If you reach out to those big ticket partners early on, you can often find some really awesome stuff that go really, really well. So that's something that we do. And the way we're so successful is we have an awesome auctioneer. So it's really important to get someone who will know how to engage the crowd. That's our guy, Ryan, right there. You can see him, people are auctioning and he's yelling. He often throws in random items, kind of, if things aren't going as planned, he'll just start thinking of things on the spot. So you really need someone who's quick. The other way that we have been able to raise a lot more money is we used a platform called ClickBid. And year over year, we saw big increases in the amount of money that came through with our silent auction, because what you can do is it's really just an online platform and you sign in on your phone. So the night of, everyone is really just, they can see all of the auction items. They can see if someone bid against you, you'll get a notification saying, Lizzie, Jason bid against these sunglasses, and then I'll go in and I'll put in a new bid. So it's really, really, really fun, but doesn't take away from the event itself because everyone is so used to, having their phones on them anyway. And then, perfect. All right, so once the event is done, as mentioned before, you really want to hold that engagement. So you'll do some liaising with the people who won in a live auction. If there's anything you have to sort out with different funders, then that's what you're going to be working on. But it's also important to, advise your stakeholders on the success of your fundraiser. So if you've raised $43,000, it's really important that you share that message and share it with the people who are going to be taking advantage of it, right? Like your athletes should know that, your coaches should know that, they should know what you're doing to support them and raise awareness about Special Olympics. So that's something I think we could do a better job on. And next time we do an event, I look forward to doing more of that. So the other thing we do is host a thank you dinner for the team. So this again would be done at one of your vendors, because again, we're always trying to show our support and hope that they'll join us next year as well. So this is a great time because volunteers do put in, a year of their life committing to this event. And it's really nice because this is all, of course, in their own time. And we usually take a month off and restart. So make sure you do establish those key learnings though, because especially if you're implementing something new, you really want to make sure you understand what worked and what didn't work. So that's it for now. Again, we've run quite a few events kind of in this time. We're gearing up for a virtual series in the next couple months. So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, it's been really fun. I'm on year 4 of this now.
Thank you so much, Lizzie.
Thank you, Jason.
So next up, we'll keep this going and move right to Chris, who will be talking about the fantastic experience. Chris?
Well, hello, everybody.
Oops. Sorry, I muted you trying to mute myself, so.
There we go. I'm really happy to tell you a little bit about London's fantastic experience. We have a really great committee of volunteers that work tirelessly on this experience, and it's definitely a team effort. It was actually an accidental fundraiser, which is a little bit unusual, but when we started out, it was called the Fantastic Event. And the reason we did it was we had just come off hosting the Special Olympics Canada National Games in London in 2010. And we had some extraordinary supporters that we wanted to find a way to thank. And so we thought, okay, well, what if we had a dinner and thank them that way? And at the time, we promised our community council that we would not lose money on this, that we would break even and we would appropriately thank and recognize these supporters. And we thought this also was a great way to raise awareness of Special Olympics in our communities. So we thought, well, let's just go ahead and do this, and it'll be a break even proposition. Can I get the next slide? So what we did was we called each of our supporters our Fan of the Year, hence the event being called the Fantastic event. And we would surprise them by showing up. We would prearrange with someone they worked with or someone they knew, and we would have a group of athletes show up with, you can see the t-shirts, congratulations, you're our fan of the year. And we would come in with balloons and cake and send out news releases to the media, depending on who the person was we were honoring that year, and we may or may not have gotten press coverage. But it was a lot of fun. The person was always delighted to be chosen, and then of course we would go ahead with the actual dinner several months later. We always had a lot of lead time there. And if we can go to the next slide. So you'll see the second iteration of our logo there, still called the Fantastic Event at that point. So how did we make it happen? We formed committees, and Lizzie's already kind of gone through a lot of that. It's very similar, you know, venue committee, guest committee, it's pretty much what she went through. And for us, our committee structure has stayed the same pretty much since the beginning. I mean, we've obviously fine-tuned as we've gone along, but each of these committees is responsible for different areas, and it seems to work really well. At the bottom, our stewardship committee, very similar to what Lizzie had said, we meet right after the event, do a little debrief where we talk about what worked well, what didn't, and we get it all written down so that we don't forget anything. And then we all sit and write letters to all of our auction donors, all of our sponsors, and so on. So they all get an appropriate thank you right off the bat, and we're able to tell them, you know, this is how much we raised, and this is how we're using the money to support our athletes. Yeah, the only committee there that you might have a question about is the athlete committee, and I'm going to actually tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. So Jason, if I can get the next slide. So we did that for the first 6 years where we honor different people. And then we thought, you know, it was really time for a refresh. We felt that in order to keep the event fun and interesting, that it needed to be something a little bit different at that point. So one of our committee members actually suggested changing it from event to experience, and the idea being that we wanted our guests to really have that feeling of, you know, they'd had a great experience and they would talk about it and remember it, and in doing so they would, you know, obviously share things about Special Olympics, and we would, you know, be able to raise our profile even more. So it became the Fantastic Experience. So third logo there. Next slide, please. So when we moved to having the Fantastic Experience, we decided that we would, instead of honoring people, we would have themes. So our first theme that we settled on was London Calling. So a British theme, but the reason we really liked this idea was because, as we are also London, we were able to say that our London was calling on the support of the community to support our athletes. So a few images from that London Calling event. You'll see in the top left there a little British tea garden. We like to have an area where our guests can take selfies or photos of each other to post on social media. Great way to get the word out about our events. So that was the little area at that event. When we decided we were going to have themes, we decided we were going all in, and everything would reflect what the theme was. So you'll see our auction tables, very much the British theme. One of our athletes dressed like Paul McCartney. We've got athletes dressed like Beefeaters, and of course the Queen. The gentleman talking to the Queen is one of our local television personalities, and he has emceed the event since the beginning, and does a wonderful job. And he's always really anxious to come back and be part of it. And his involvement in that has actually been great, because now he's also joins in on the torch run every year, and you know, basically is there for us when we need him. So it's fantastic. And yeah, we do use the word fantastic a lot. Next slide. So then after the London Calling, we decided we would have a superhero edition, we called it. And the idea here, again, we thought this was a great springboard for being able to talk about the superheroes in our Special Olympics community. So our athletes, our sponsors, our coaches, and so on. So we've got an athlete there dressed like Supergirl. Is it Supergirl? Yeah, that didn't sound right as I was. So yeah, we had athletes dressed in different superhero costumes. The giant Spider-Man at the door. We had a number of people say it shouldn't have said welcome. It should have said go big or go home. But yeah, I mean, again, we wove the theme through the entire evening. As guests arrived, we had a little, you can sort of see it in the background there, the little red and white striped awning. So it was meant to look like an old time kind of comic book stand. And the programs, you'll see the athlete there holding one of them up. We had the same program, but they had 4 different covers with athletes on the front. So they were meant to look like different comic books that they could pick up. As guests arrived, they were given a superhero identity with an origin story, so they all could feel like they were part of the whole superhero theme. So it worked very, very well. We were really pleased with that particular theme. Next slide, please. So our 2020 event was to have been the Roaring 20s. So it was postponed to 2021, and now it's been postponed to April 2022. But we're going to keep the same theme, because as you can see from the pictures, these are some of our marketing pictures that we had sent out, because really our event was only, I think, about 3 weeks away or 4 weeks away when we had to cancel or postpone. So a lot of things were already done. We had purchased costumes for the athletes, table decor was already purchased, you know, in line with that theme. So it makes sense for us to go ahead and continue with that theme, even though it's not 2020, it's still the Roaring 20s. So we think we can get away with it. So yes, we're looking forward to jumping back in and having that theme. It should be a lot of fun. And we have lots of great things planned. Next slide. So how does our evening unfold? So we have a cocktail reception prior to the dinner. And what we say on the tickets is guests are welcome from a certain time instead of at a certain time. So we usually say guests are welcome from 5:30, dinner is it's usually at 7. And the benefit of that is we don't have everyone arriving at once. They trickle in, and it gives us an opportunity to greet the guests as they arrive. There's no lineups. People can look at the table seating chart and not feel like there's people waiting behind them. The athletes have a chance to greet them as well as they come in. So what do we do during the cocktail reception? Well, there's always a place for photo opportunities for social media, themed activities. So for example, in the upcoming event, in the 2022 event, we have a few athletes that are going to be teaching our guests how to do the Charleston. So, you know, that's something they can do just, you know, as they arrive, they can have a little bit of fun and learn that. Of course, the silent auction tables, people immediately want to start browsing the tables when they arrive. The programs are on the table, and some people like to sit down and just start reading them. Musical entertainment, some years we've had it and some years we haven't at the cocktail reception. It depends on how busy we feel the actual cocktail reception is. In our initial runs, we always had music at the cocktail reception, and the beauty of that was there wasn't quite as much going on back then, and people were just browsing the auction tables, and there was this nice background music. But as we've embraced the theme and there's more things going on, we don't really feel the same need. When guests arrive, they're given a signature cocktail that relates to the theme, and yeah, everybody seems to appreciate that. Then, of course, the MC kicks off the evening. We sit down to dinner. All but 1 year, we have aired a video before the dinner, and of course, you know, showcasing a little bit about our programs and our athletes. Then we have our plated dinner. Between courses, we usually begin the sponsor recognition. We do a funded need at the dinner, and our committee feels very strongly that we don't want to be in your face with the funded need. We've all attended events where you feel very obligated, and we just felt that for our event, that wasn't the vibe we wanted. So it's always a very, very laid back funded need, but it seems to work well for our event. And some years we have an activity at the table, such as trivia, something that you know, guests can chat amongst themselves. And then after dinner, of course, we have the live auction. Our live auction is very small. We don't want it taking up a lot of time. So we typically have 5 or 6 live auction items. And then of course, after dinner, we have the staggered silent auction tables closing. We usually have 3 tables. The sponsors, we just allow our presenting sponsor and our podium sponsor to give remarks. And then our athlete entertainment, which I will tell you more about in a minute. I keep postponing the athlete talk, don't I? And then musical entertainment at the end of the night, which may sound weird, but it actually works really well. When the evening officially wraps up, we never wanted it to feel like our guests had to depart right away. We didn't want them feeling like, oh, it's done, I better leave. If they wanted to spend a bit of time talking to our athletes or talking to other guests that they hadn't had a chance to chat with yet, we wanted them to feel like it was okay to stay in the room. So for 20 to 30 minutes after the official program ends, we have musical entertainment on the stage. And not surprisingly, the athletes that are in the room dance. And everybody else mingles and chats a little bit longer. And it's kind of a nice way to just sort of, you know, bring it all down at the end of the evening in a quieter sort of way, and people leave in a very relaxed way. It's a nice way to close off the evening. Next slide. So how do we get our support? Again, very similar to what Lizzie was saying, sponsorship. So the sponsorship packages, we send them out approximately 6 months prior to the event. Again, similar to Lizzie, this kind of tends to be, well, except for right now, a year-round thing. We take a couple of months off after the event, and then we fire back up again and jump back in. So we find for us about 6 months prior to the event, our sponsorship packages go out. The packages include information about the event itself, about our Special Olympics programs, the sponsorship levels, and we stick to very traditional sponsorship levels. We have our presenting sponsor, our podium sponsor, and then of course, you know, gold, silver, bronze level sponsorships. And then, you know, we give them a couple of weeks and follow up with phone calls. But what we found is once someone comes on as a sponsor, they stay. And before we even have a chance to follow up with a phone call, we're usually getting emails saying, oh, absolutely, we're back. We're definitely back. The silent and live auctions, we send out the requests a couple, 2-3 months prior to the event. And then a team of volunteers follow up with phone calls, and they pick up the donated items. Usually it's done as a, okay, you know, such and such a place in the north end of the city has a donation. And so somebody that lives in that end of the city will pick up the item, and we try and divvy it up that way. A lot of the request letters for the silent auction are sent out now by email at the request of the donors. So that makes it a little better for us too, because we're not spending quite as much on postage and things like that. Next slide. Our athletes, here we are. So again, this is kind of like an accidental thing, like the whole event was. At our very first event, so that was back in 2011, and at that time flash mobs were still very much a thing, and we thought, oh, you know, it'd be kind of fun to just have the athletes that are in the audience just pop up and do a little flash mob dance. And you know, we had one sort of jump up and start dancing, and then another, and you know, the crowd absolutely loved it. And we thought, okay, well, let's remember this. And then the second year, we thought, well, let's change it up a little bit. We'll do something a little different. And one of our volunteers, Bill Mills, who probably everybody knows and is on the call tonight, was up giving the speech about our fan of the year. And it was supposed to be this, you know, heartfelt, here's all these wonderful things about him. But of course, we prearranged with the athletes. And as Bill started to give his talk, one of the athletes popped up and said, wait a minute, Bill, did you remember that you should say such and such about Dennis, our fan that year was Dennis. And so then, you know, Bill would say, oh yes, okay. And at first you could see the audience was a little unsure how to take it. They weren't sure that it was staged. And so it was kind of funny watching people's reaction. And then after, you know, the third or fourth or fifth athlete jumped up to interrupt Bill, everybody started to get the idea that this was very much staged, and you know, got quite silly from that point on. But again, they loved it. So every single year, our athletes have been part of the program, and it is always one of the highlights. Well, it is the highlight of the evening. So typically we have around 15 athletes that participate. Last year, sorry, not last year. See, 2020 just doesn't feel like it even happened. 2019, I think we had about 19, just because we needed a few more for what we were doing that year. It was a skit, and we needed a few more athletes. But you know, typically 15, 16 athletes is a good number. So what we're finding, like one of our major sponsors always now asks to be seated with athletes, which is exactly what you want to have happen, right? You want them to get to know the athletes and to feel really connected to the organization. So we love that. One couple that attended the event as guests of a sponsor early on have now become annual major donors, which again is fantastic. And they say that, you know, one of the reasons they want to give back is because the athletes make them feel like they're part of the family. This couple was not involved or had any connection to Special Olympics prior to this. So, you know, that's amazing. And we often hear that, you know, from our guests, that is the thing they love the best, is our athletes' participation in the event. And we've also found too that just having the athletes in the room, the speakers, when they go up on stage, they tend to involve our athletes in what they're saying. And one year we had one of our guests speaking, and he said, he told everybody that he hires Special Olympics athletes in his business. And on the spot, he challenged the other guests in the room to hire Special Olympics athletes. And within, I think it was about 3 weeks, one of the other sponsors called and said, we'd like to hire an athlete. How do we go about doing this? And not long after that, there was another. So, I mean, there's all these sort of side benefits that we did not anticipate at all when we set out to do this. Yes, it has become our biggest fundraiser, but you know, we still like to look at it that it's so much more than that. There's so many other benefits that, particularly for our athletes. Next slide, please. So how much have we raised? The first year, the year we said we would break even and promised we wouldn't lose money, we raised $21,961. So it was kind of a pleasant surprise. So the last event, 2019, we raised $39,457 net. As Lizzie was saying, you know, we're kind of on the same page. We had big expectations for the event in 2020 and had set our goal quite a bit higher. Now we're sort of taking a step back and saying, okay, so might COVID alter what we net on the next event? Quite possibly. We are fully expecting that, you know, some of our sponsors, some of our auction donors might still be feeling the effects of COVID in terms of, you know, how much they are able to donate. And we completely understand that, and we just want to be supportive of them. We'll still have fun doing the event. We still will have all these side benefits that I was talking about. And so, you know, if we don't raise anywhere near what we did in 2019, we are quite prepared for that, and we are okay with that. We will still set our goal as, higher than the 2019 event, but I think realistically, we're all sort of thinking, yeah, it could happen that it's somewhat lower, and it might take us a year or two to sort of get back up to that, $40,000, $45,000, $50,000 level, and that's perfectly fine, because it's an event that just gives so many benefits to the London Special Olympics community that we'll just keep doing it. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. So we'll move right along and introduce Janet from Manitoulin Island, who will be going over the Bluegrass in the Country event. Janet.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, and actually, John Featherstone is going to speak first for us. We have a Bluegrass committee when we started ours, and John heads up our committee as the person who got our Bluegrass started. So he's going to start at the beginning and talk about how and why we started Bluegrass, and then we'll switch back and forth.
Okay, am I on? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're on.
Okay, it was born from my son Austin. Just for a reference, he was Male Athlete of the Year in 2011. But anyways, he came to me and wanted to know about having a Bluegrass Festival as a fundraiser. And I'm involved in music. I have a radio show on the local radio station. It's Bluegrass Gospel Sunday morning. I know a lot of the bands and everything. And I said to him, well, Austin, these shows don't make the money people think they do. In fact, a lot of them fail. But I'll look into it. So I approached a man by the name of Tony DeBoer, who was Mr. Bluegrass in Ontario. He ran a lot of festivals for the Sound and so on. And he said, oh yeah, let's go ahead. Let's give it a shot, see what happens. So Austin had a really good bunch of friends in a band called the Kentucky Bluegrass Boys from Sudbury. And I said to him, if you can get these guys to come, Austin, we'll build a show around them and see what happens. So, for Austin, for sure. Yeah, we'll come. So our first show was in 2010. It was a Saturday matinee. We had about 250 people and 8 trailers. And just to scoot on ahead, we are now one of the major bluegrass festivals on the Ontario circuit. Last year we had well over 100 trailers, close to 1,000 people. I have a list of 30 bands that want to come, which is pretty remarkable because Manitoulin is remote and it's isolated and it's far away. We have a population here of about 12,000 people. So you folks that are on this thing from down south, you're looking at what, a town the size of Aylmer to draw from. When we started, I would approach the bands I knew and they would just kind of look at me sideways. And the first question would be, who does your sound? And I'd say, Tony does. Oh, okay, we'll be there. And so it's just grown from there. What we do mainly, now the show has gone from Saturday afternoon to a 4-day event, starts Thursday evening and it runs through till Sunday. Sunday is Bluegrass Gospel and it's wide open gates, completely free. And that's where we build the show locally. People will come to that. And then the next year they come back for the whole show because they get a taste of what we're all about. The other thing we've grown into and we offer, specifically because of Manitoulin, we have a bluegrass cruise, a bluegrass dinner cruise on the Thursday evening. The boat holds about 75 people. We put a bluegrass band on it. We go out into the North Channel for about an hour, which is one of the most picturesque boating channels in the world. Then we drop anchor and have this gourmet meal, and then we come back and the bluegrass music is playing all the time. A big part of our show, yeah, I'm not asking to move these slides because I've never seen them before, but anyway, that's our stage right there. A big part of our show is the sponsors. We have an electronic, what we call sponsor board, one of those electronic boards that shows up in the daylight, and it runs all through the whole weekend. And we get about 120 sponsors, mostly local businesses from Manitoulin, if you can believe it. And they'll give us ads to put on that sponsorship board. And one of the big jobs is, I hear other comments, we send out sponsorship requests. Well, that doesn't work up here. You have to go and get right in their face. And you walk into their place of business. Oh, yeah. We remember that now. Yeah, we'll be back. Or if it's a new person, you give them the sales pitch. If you just send out an email or a letter, it'll go on a pile somewhere, and that's the last you hear of it. But we've got to the point now where it's trendy. Everybody wants to be on our sponsor board. And just to give you an idea of how the show has progressed, as has been said, 2020 was a wash, but for that particular show, we had, the headliner was Claire Lynch, and she's won female gospel artist in America several times. She's open for Dolly Parton, Emmylou Harris, Linda Ronstadt. She is really going to put this show on the map. All kinds of people have said to me, you're having Claire Lynch? And I say, yeah. Well, that's a knockoff, right? No, this is Claire Lynch herself. Wow, we're going to be there. So that's my job, is to do the music. I have a wonderful committee behind me that does all the other chores. And our athletes, I think, are one of the greatest attributes we have. We have, whatever it is, 4 or 5 gold medals from world gold medals from little old Manitoulin Island, which is incredible. Several national and provincial. And so when you go to a sponsor, they like to see where their money's going. They like to back a winner. And so the kids themselves, or the athletes themselves, I should say, they're a very big part of making the show a success. And about 5 o'clock, we do a square dance demonstration with our athletes, and it'll just about bring tears to a lot of people, especially people that have never been before. And so the athletes are all at the show. And what I'm just going to close off now and go to Janet, but what I really want to encourage everybody who's listening, come to Manitoulin Island the second week of June, weekend in June. Bring your athletes, because a lot of them know our athletes. It's just a wonderful time for the whole Special Olympics community and all the people that come. They're great. They're just, bluegrass fans are a great bunch of folks too. So do you want to say anything more, Janet?
Yes, I'll just add a few things. So when John was talking about when we started, we were like everybody else. We had we had golf tournaments and raffles, and so as John said, we've got all small businesses up here. So every single fundraiser, hockey teams, everything that there is up here goes to our to our small businesses. And can I get prizes for the golf tournament? Can I get this for that? So and selling tickets. So we had decided once this was a success, that we were not going to do much other fundraising. And when we go and get sponsors, we give them bluegrass tickets as well, depending on whether they are bronze or silver or gold or platinum sponsors. And they often will raffle off those tickets that we've given them in other raffles within their own businesses, just to send us more money. So it's amazing what they do. And as John was saying about, so I'll tell you a little bit about our crew. We have a committee, a basic committee, and then we have an extended committee. So our basic committee, we start out at the very beginning. You know, we have numerous meetings throughout. John will tell us about the bands and how much rooms we have to rent and that kind of stuff for the bands. And then we go from there. One of us will get somebody will do the volunteers. I mean, we have to have volunteers for the gates, volunteers for all different things. Somebody will do the vendors, somebody else will do the financing. You know, so it's a complete whole committee that we have that includes our athletes. We have a core group of athletes that work at the Bluegrass and help us throughout the whole weekend. We usually go there and camp and stay at the grounds. It is at our Providence Bay Fairgrounds, and we camp and stay there and work at it the whole time. The campers line up from Thursday morning. They're lined up down the street to wait to get in. We have to keep opening sooner and sooner just to let the people in. And this, we also, for decorating, as you can see on these pictures here, we decorate some photo booths, and all the, you know, the bands and all the people, they all come and go to the photo booths. And it's actually one of our local JD's Gardens that loans us all of the flowers for all of our decorations, to set for our stage and for all our photo booths. They loan us them for the day and then take them all back. So it doesn't cost us anything. We sell them for them if people want. There's prizes, and you know, we sell some, but we try as much as we can to give back to our community. We don't charge our vendors, for instance. We want our vendors to be able to come, and if they make money, great. If they don't make money, we don't want them to have to put out money to come. They always donate more money back than we would have charged them in the first place, just because they're that's what they do. And our athletes, as John was saying about our athletes, we want as many of our athletes and local athletes, Espanola and Sudbury and Elliott Lake, anybody, we've invited them all. And as we know, their finances are not the greatest, right? They don't have a lot of money. So yes, you know, it is a fundraiser. We want people to buy tickets, but we also want as many athletes and community living members to come. If they don't have any money, they're welcome to come. We know that they have to come with staff, and if we charge the staff, then a lot of times the individuals aren't going to be able to be there. So everybody is welcome, and that's what we want to make them know. And the community that comes to this Bluegrass, they just love seeing the athletes up by the stage dancing. And as I said, the square dancing, it is such a big event. When we first started to do the square dancing, we just did it for fun. Actually, it was a couple of our athletes. We were on our way to North Bay to a curling, and we were watching an old Lucille Ball video with that was showing them square dancing. And one of our curlers said, "Hey, can we learn square dancing?" Well, sure enough, we were doing a fundraiser for our national games, which was a music event, which another person had helped us with just as a fundraiser. And of course, there were some of the people who knew how to square dance. So sure enough, there we were at this fundraiser, just learning how to square dance. And we've been square dancing ever since. And it's a highlight of the evening. And we have a great time learning the square dancing with our athletes, the ones who square dance, and they have a blast. That's something we've really missed doing through this whole lockdown. So we try to give back to the community that's giving to us, as well as we want it to be a fundraiser. We used to just have a sponsor board at the back, but now it's the electronic sponsor board. We want everybody to know who's helping us out. And you know, the amount of people who, when we had to cancel our Bluegrass, the amount of people who called me or emailed me and said, "Can we send you a donation since you couldn't have Bluegrass?" Because they knew we couldn't have it. But our local businesses, all being small businesses, we didn't want them to do that. We want them to wait until Bluegrass. So I think that's it. It's been a great event for us. We only try to do the one fundraiser unless we have sometimes if we have large groups going to national games, then, and you have to come up with an extra 5,000 or 8,000. or more, then we sometimes will fundraise a little bit more. But otherwise, this event covers off everything we need to do. And we have a great time at it at the same time. We don't have any alcohol. It's not a licensed event. We don't have a beer gardens and we will not be doing a beer gardens because it changes the whole event, changes the atmosphere, it changes the event. So we're keeping things the way they are, only we're just going to keep getting better and better.
Thank you so much, Janet. And thank you to all of the presenters. It's been great hearing about these events. You have some incredible events in the community. I know for the last few days, as I've worked with each of you, it's gotten my itch to attend or work on some events going. And there's some really cool ideas that I think I'd love to keep in my mind. And I really hope I can make it out to some of the events further in the throughout the province. Now we have some time for questions. I know that you all probably could have talked for a lot longer about your events. There's so many great ideas and great options in there. Jen, I don't know how long we have extra for questions right now.
We are at the 8 o'clock, but if anyone has any questions for our presenters, feel free to raise your hand or write them in the chat and we will try to answer some of those for you.
Thanks, Jen. And as mentioned, if you want to connect directly with any of the presenters afterwards, send me an email. It'll be posted again after the question period. So you can write it down and you can check in. I can connect you directly with any or all of the presenters so that you can pick their brains a bit more. So do we have any?
We do have one question that's come in. Janet, we have people asking how much the Bluegrass Festival raises.
It's something I didn't tally up how much. I'm going to say we would average probably maybe about $16,000 each year. But I couldn't be positive, right? It ranges. But I'm going to say about $16,000 a year.
Right.
And we do have a Bluegrass website. I forgot to tell you. So you could go onto our website. You can see lots of pictures and see lots of information. It's called bluegrassinthecountry.net.
Yep, the site right here as well.
And we want everybody to come up. So feel welcome. Give us a call. We'll get you some tickets and get you up here.
Any other questions in the chat or with hands up?
That looks like all we have right now. Cindy's asking if you guys are still planning to run it this year.
No. Next June the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th next year.
Great. One thing I'd like to add, and I know that Janet, you've got a lot of sponsors that are out there. Chris and Lizzie, you incorporate a lot of auction items as well. One thing that I've learned through the years, and that I'm sure you guys can probably all echo, is that the biggest reason groups don't ask don't donate, whether it's auction items or sponsorships, is because they're not asked. And the importance of having someone on your team who's up for going, especially in those initial stages before it becomes a known event. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I would say it's one of the hardest things is getting auction items, and you definitely need to make sure that the people who are going to be doing that are going to be comfortable and that they're going to commit to doing a good job, because it's easy to say, oh, I'll contact this person, but sometimes just one follow-up isn't enough. So really extending your network, going wherever you can. It also raises awareness. They might say no, but hey, they now know about your event and about Special Olympics. So yeah.
Awesome. So if we don't have any other ones on the go, we can move on to the next slide. So as I mentioned, if you have any questions for any of the presenters, all of the presenters, send me an email, jasonh@specialolympicsontario.com. I'd be happy to connect you with any or all of our presenters today. You can chat with them a bit more about the events. Maybe you're looking to put on something similar or your own version of it, or just take some of the lessons for any of the community fundraising activities you have on the go. I also want to spotlight some of the other sessions that are on the go this week. Tomorrow we have sessions on web development, partner organizations, and athlete leadership. Thursday we have some really great social events on the go. We have charades, we have some social just chats, and we have some other game activities going on, where you'll have the option to pick what type of activity you want to do. And then on Saturday, we have sessions on return to program, planning for success, and a session on the portal. So if you're interested, please make sure that you register for these so that you're able to attend. And then through the next few weeks, we still have lots of amazing sessions and amazing presenters to come. So if that's all, then I would like to thank everyone. I want to thank our presenters for all of their help and all of their hard work in putting this together, and all the great stories that they've shared. There's some amazing fundraising activities, and the amount that it does for the athletes can't be overstated. It's such great work, and I think all the volunteers in the community should be very proud of the work that they do. I want to thank everyone for coming today. Hope you got a lot out of these sessions. And as I mentioned, please make sure your name is listed on the participants so we can make sure that we enter you into the draw for our different prizes. Thanks, and have a great night.
Thank you.